Hi, it's Ian. Today I'm in a new practice room. I'm in a studio space called Monument in San Francisco. I've done a lot of concerts here over the years, and I'm really happy that they've allowed me not just to work here, but keep this beautiful piano, Steinway piano, in this space. Today I'm going to be working on a song that was a request from Charlie, one of my friends who lives here at Monument. This is a song I've known and loved for a long time, so I think she made a good choice in requesting this. Thank you, Charlie. This piece is by the electronic music artist Aphex Twin, also known as Richard James. The title of the song is Avril 14th, which is interesting because Avril is French for April, so it suggests April 14th, the date. But it's interesting to me because he chose the French word Avril, but then he wrote 14th the way we write it in English. In French it would be, what is it, quatorzième, and they write the abbreviation a little differently. Anyway, that's just an aside. I may cut that out of the video. This is a piece he released in the year 2000, 2001 on one of his albums. Interestingly, he composed this and recorded this to be played on a Yamaha disc clavier piano, which is a kind of piano that's outfitted with an automated playing system, which you can either record on with discs, or in the case of Richard James, compose a MIDI file on the computer and then send it to the piano. So in a funny way, this piece is known as being a very robotically performed piece of music, which makes sense because of Aphex Twin. You know, as an electronic artist, he did a lot of experimental stuff that's really out there and really wonderful in so many crazy ways. This is not a particularly crazy piece. It's known as a beautiful, very calm, meditative, almost hypnotic. It falls in the line of, you know, what classical music would call a nocturne or something like that. It's very evocative and peaceful. Now, my goal today is to learn to play this in just one practice session. So I'm going to be very strategic with how I learn it, and I'm going to show you my process. In the style of many pop songs, this has a limited range of chords, which is one of the things that makes it actually a little bit easy to learn on a first pass. So first I'm going to focus on the harmonies. All right, this piece has 3 sections. The first section is the one that comes back at the end, and so it's, in a ways, it's the most important. It starts with just F minor harmonies with a nice 7th in there. So that's a whole bar of F minor. And then we have a D flat chord, and then a B flat chord. And these are nice. They both have nice sort of jazzy added 9ths, and I think the B flat even has an 11th in there. So nice lush chords on the second bar, a little more austere, the F minor on the first bar. And the fingering I'm using separates the downbeats, the beats where I play with my pinky, from the other 3, which I'm leaping to a 3rd finger position on all 3 of them. So 1. Okay, still focusing on the left hand, I'm going to look now at the second section, what I would call the B section. Here we move back and forth between an A flat chord and an E flat and a D flat. This is a very nice, comforting place to be. We're clearly in the major key now with A flat major. Still a little bit of those jazzy harmonies. Also, the way I do it in my hand is a very comforting kind of lullaby-like rocking feeling. again, I'm using my pinky on the beats, and then on the second beat, I do this thing where I cross over my thumb. That puts my third finger on the last note of the bar, which is perfect for reaching my pinky down again. Okay, the C section, the third section, is one sort of static pattern, but the rhythms start changing. Again, remember this was composed for this kind of computer type performance. So think about that when we start getting into the rhythms. Go back to the first theme again. So if you have trouble with those rhythms, it's always good to slow down and to subdivide. So the rhythms are all offbeat 16th notes. So you can count the 16th notes, as in 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4 and 2 and 3E and a 4 1. You can do that as many times as you like until it's totally comfortable. In fact, that's a good idea. Do it as many times as you like until it's totally comfortable. Like I said, we return to the A section. This should be familiar now. Bear with me. I know we're just working on the left hand, but it's so important to have a good solid bass, and we're almost done with it. The end has a little coda that's just chords. Left-hand part's pretty straightforward. And then the final little 4 bars where things start to come apart a little bit is basically the same F minor harmonies, but he starts adding some of those jazzier tones right away. Okay, let's go back to the beginning now and start integrating the right hand. The right hand melody is pretty easy. You can do it all in one hand position, which is why I start the theme on my 4th finger. When I get to the octave version, I just try to make sure my arm is really balanced over my hand so that I'm giving equal preference to my thumb and my pinky. It makes for a nice, comfortable kind of dropping feeling. Now we get to the B section. Right hand joins this kind of lullaby like rocking back and forth. Okay, now we're in the 3rd section. I'm going to practice getting into it so I can get that color change. I'm also going to make sure I remember the same thing about my octaves in my right hand, and I'm going to be real careful with counting those subdivisions in the rhythm as it comes apart. So, here we go. not too bad. Okay, we return to the first part. This time when the octaves come, they're more involved. You got to make sure you get the full melody. All right, now we get to the chords, the coda. I like playing the chords a little more full. It's a change of texture. There's a little funny rhythm business that I do with my two thumbs. Again, it was composed to be played by a computer, so some of the fingerings are not, shall we say, organic. Okay, now I have to say, the last 4 bars, I probably practiced those for as much time as I spent on the entire rest of the piece. So that's maybe a recommendation. You know, whenever you do something, go back to those last 4 bars and really play it slowly. Make sure you got all of the weird rhythmic kinks out of it, and only really go as slow as you can control it. I've made my own transcription of this. If you want my arrangement with all my fingerings, just send me a message. I'll hook you up. Okay, I've done a pretty good job practicing. It's relatively clean. Now I want to talk about making some interpretive choices. So the thing about interpretive choices is that they change all the time, and whatever I tell you now may not be what I'm thinking tomorrow. But here's what I think. The way that this piece was recorded on the Yamaha disc clavier is very interesting. If you listen to the original version by Aphex Twin, it sounds like the microphone setup is placed very close to the mechanisms of the piano, meaning, you know, where the keys and hammers are working. And remember, this is a disc clavier that's being automatically controlled by the machine work inside it. And so that's an important part of the listening experience, is hearing the kind of clicking and clattering of the piano. It gives it that machine-like, you know, quality that I think the composer intended. There's also something muted about the sound that he gets out of his piano, and I've been thinking about how to try to capture that. You'll notice that when I was practicing, I was using a lot of pedal because I wanted to sort of get the almost impressionistic sense of the piece. But I also kind of want to somehow get that muted, sort of clattery, thumpy sound. So I thought of something today. I'm going to use my scarf, which I brought because it's a little cold, and I'm going to try to mute some of the strings. Now, this is something you should not do unless it's your piano and you are responsible for the strings, because strings can be damaged. But I'm not going to use my hands. There's oils on your skin that you don't want on the strings. I'm just going to put this nice clean scarf on some of the strings to mute the sound a little bit. So let's get in here. So let's get in here for a moment. Okay, so the thing about muting the strings is you want to make sure that you fold it around these frames so that all of the strings have a little bit of contact with the scarf. Okay, let's see what it sounds like. another thing I can do to make it a little more interesting, or at least change the texture if you don't like that sort of soupy, impressionistic texture with all the pedal, is you could just play the left hand a little more detached and see if that gives it a kind of a brightness and energy. Let's hear what that sounds like. It definitely at least gives it a little bit more of that machine-like consistency. Okay, I hope you enjoyed today's practice video. I wish you a wonderful time practicing, and if anyone else is learning this piece, send me a message. I would like to hear about your journey. Thanks to all my practice room patrons who sponsor this program. I couldn't do it without you. Thanks also to Monument for hosting today's practice room session, and thanks to Charlie for requesting a great piece of music.